Hi, I'm Marshall. I'm the owner of Going Gear, and I'm here in our store in Smyrna, Georgia. Today we're going to take a look at the Mecarmy GP1 fidget spinner.
All right, here we are with the Mecarmy GP1 fidget spinner. So fidget spinners are a new category for us at Going Gear, and the Mecarmy GP1 was the very first model that we got in. Fidget spinners are not just a new category for us, they're a new category for the market overall. So these are a pretty new concept. There have been a lot of guys making them in their garage or making them in their CNC shops, and they've been kind of hard to get. Well, I think a lot of the bigger manufacturers have seen the popularity of them, and you've got more established companies like Mecarmy and some other guys that are getting into the game. But Mecarmy were the first ones that we got in, and they're a really cool take on the concept. They've got some nice innovative ideas in these, so I wanted them to be the first one that I did a video on. So if you're not familiar with fidget spinners, they are something just to keep your hands and your mind occupied while you're sitting there watching TV or while you're at work or while you're on the phone. Just something to mess around with your hands. It's not exactly a new concept in terms of fidgeting, and that's something that a lot of us do every day. When I sent out the email announcing that we were starting to carry things like this, I talked about the things that I do with my hands. I mess around with my wedding ring. I take it off and play with it in my hands, spin it on the table. I'll mess around with my watch. A lot of us are really bad about flicking our knives all day long, so you sit there and flick your knife while you're watching TV, drive your family and coworkers crazy if you're at work. But just things that we do to keep our hands busy. And fidget spinners, man, they're definitely the coolest take on that concept that I have seen so far. Hopefully people keep on messing around with that world and coming up with new things, just ways to keep our hands busy. But just think of it like a top that you hold. So I've got a couple of the finishes out. I'm going to go ahead and pull the third one out just so you can see what comes in the packaging, because it comes with a nice little carrying case. And you've got it in a poly bag, but here is the third finish, the all black. And then you have a Torx wrench because these are modular and adjustable. And that's it in the packaging. These are pretty simple things, so there's no user manual or anything like that. So let's get that out of the way and show you these and kind of explain what's going on. So if you're not familiar with Mecarmy, we've been a dealer of theirs for a couple of years now, probably close to 3 years now, and they make some really cool products. They make some really nice EDC keychain lights. This is actually part of my EDC right here. They've been getting into big and bright lights, more tactical lights, and they've even been getting into knives. So the designer of most of the products and the owner of the company, he's a total EDC junkie like a lot of the rest of us. So he's been getting into knives and other EDC gear, and this is the next route for them, but he wanted to do his own unique take on them. So the idea behind the GP1 is that these are modular. It's something that I haven't seen in spinners. I'm sure somebody else has done it. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me in the comments, but I personally haven't seen anything like this yet. And the idea is that these are the three initial finishes and the three initial different types of materials. But eventually, once they catch up with production on these and they get some more colors introduced, is you're going to be able to mix and match the different parts, and they hope to eventually be able to offer these different parts in different colors, in different finishes, in different materials, so you can customize your spinner. And that's a pretty cool concept. So you can see that you have the Torx screws in there, and you can use that Torx wrench to take this thing apart, and you've got these plates on either side. You've got the metal sandwiched in there. You've got the button caps, and then you have the bearing down in there. And you're going to be able to mess with all those parts and put different things on here, put different color caps on there and different plates, mix and match your different spinners. So it's a really neat concept. I really like the idea, and I like where they're going with it. Here's what it looks like disassembled. It came apart pretty quickly in about a minute. If you ever happen to want to clean it or maintain it, or I really hope they go through with their idea of making the individual parts available. They've already announced that they're going to have some other colors, so you will be able to do the mixing and matching. And obviously, you can do the mixing and matching on the ones that are already available. But I'm going to be really excited when they make these things available by themselves, some bars available by themselves, some buttons and some screws available by themselves. So hopefully they do actually do that. But you can see this thing is totally easily disassembled, and this just sets right in there, and then the plates hold it in place, and then you got the screws and the posts, and then the buttons to hold everything together. So you can get it apart pretty quickly with the included tools, so that's kind of nice. So some basic specs on these. I'm going to go look over at my computer screen because I can never remember all the decimal points and everything. So there are different materials on here. So you've either got all titanium or you've got titanium and copper. In terms of the materials, the weight is going to be a little bit different. The titanium, you're going to be at 49 grams. The titanium and copper, you are at 71 grams. The dimensions, you're at 56 by 38 by 8 millimeters. And then for the bearing, it's a Cage 688 ceramic hybrid bearing. So you can kind of see that down in there. So you've got ceramic for the balls, and then that center part and the outer part is going to be stainless steel. And by caged, it means that the bearings aren't just loose in there. They've got a cage around them just to hold them in place, keep them separate and everything. There is no lubrication on these. That's something to note that is kind of counterintuitive if you're coming from the EDC world, if you're coming from the knife world, if you're coming from the flashlight world. These things spin a lot longer if you don't have any lubrication on them. If you do want to put a dab of lubrication on there, that's totally okay. It'll make them spin much more quietly, but you're going to reduce the spin time by about half. Which, if you're like me, I don't really care about the spin time. I'm more interested in just fidgeting around with this thing, messing around with it. And I really like the feel of it. I like the shape. I like the materials. So if those things are what you like better, you want it to spin more quietly, you want it to spin more smoothly, put a tiny little dab of lubricant on there. That's not a big deal. You can totally do that. Just do one that's appropriate for these type of bearings for sure. But if you don't want to do that, you will get drastically longer spin times. And speaking of spin times, people have been asking about what you get. And on the titanium versions, you get about 1.5 to 2 minutes because you don't have a ton of weight on these. These are relatively compact, and you don't have the 3 or 4 fins coming off of them. On the copper one, since it does have a significant amount of weight compared to the titanium ones, it's still lightweight, nothing you'd really notice in your pocket. But you can get 3 to 4 minutes out of this thing. The first time I spun it, I got right under 4 minutes, so it's not bad at all. And like with all bearings, over time, it'll work in and you'll get better spin times. And if you start having any issues, you can clean these, you can maintain these, so these aren't that big of a deal. But these are the 3 different versions. So we've got that brushed satin titanium, we've got that matte black titanium, and then we have the matte black titanium combined with the copper. This has been overwhelmingly the most popular one. As you can imagine, if you've watched any of my other videos, if you follow our Instagram or anything like that, you know that this is also our favorite at the shop because we are total suckers for copper, and matte black and copper just gives it a very, very cool look, a very cool finish to it. And then you start throwing in other flashlights like the little Mecarmy copper one that I showed you, and copper knives and things like that. Get a nice themed EDC. You can be a total EDC nerd and have it match all your other gear. But anyway, again, this is something just to mess around with, something to play with. If you happen to want to attach it to a keychain or lanyard, a little alligator clip or a way to carry it, you've got attachment points there if you want to do that, just for a way to carry it so it's not dangling around loose in your pocket. You've got the bag that it comes with. Again, you're going to get 3 to 4 minute spin times out of the box on the copper and titanium one, about 1.5 to 2 minutes, maybe a little over 2 minutes on the titanium versions. And those spin times are going to be assuming that you have them sitting flat on a table like this. If you have it in your hand, you're going to knock them against each other if you have multiples like that. But you're going to get a little bit of wobble when you're doing it in your hands. Man, my left-handed flick is not great. I'm sure people are going to mock me in the comments for that. My right hand isn't all that great either, especially when I'm hitting it against my fingers. But anyway, if you take it and you flick it with 2 hands, you start wobbling it around like that. That's going to make it slow down and things like that. So when I talk about the spin times, I'm talking about it sitting flat on a table and you're not messing with it. But still, again, I personally don't really care about that. I want to know how it feels, how it looks. The materials are really cool to me, and something that's just fun to play with, mess around with in your hands. So again, these are the first spinners that we have at Going Gear. These are the Mecarmy GP1s. Link in the description if you want to buy these from us. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Get going and start something. Thanks for watching. Nope. Ah. Oh. Maybe if I just do it really slowly. Nope. Well, I can drop it on things. Just gotta drop it on my finger. I can barely transfer it when it's not spinning. I don't think there's any hope for me. I give up.